cops are a little bit amped up because of the shooting earlier. They're about to run into a group of people that have umbrage with each other. Let's see how they handled it.
Down the block. Somebody got shot. Be careful that way. Somebody just got shot. Come down here! Stop! Stop fighting!
It's always someone's sister, bro. Always ready to have a titty pop out. That's an issue, man. Oh yeah. That gotta be. Look. Like that outfit for that figure type. That's crazy. They are acting a fool now. That's crazy. Sure, you just interrupted like the docile ones just to spray her. Or she was just about to, I guess, I don't know. But you made it a point to seek her out and mace a lady that's being, I don't know, like restrained against the wall. Push the people to the side to mace her. That's good stuff. Someone gave a go-ahead for the mace. And I guess having observed the behavior before, they were ready to mace her, you know what I mean? She had punched that mace ticket earlier on. Why not mace her? I'd say everybody that's with the what's ups gets maced. I don't know. But not like, look at that. That's retarded, bro. Screaming.
After blessing that one lady with the hot sauce, they go about their
So
business.
it's always got to be this goofy
vernacular.
vernacular.
I sped it up simply for the sake of time. You can watch the
Humoristic
original if
white
you want.
man.
I've linked it in the description. Things are going to get a little crazy
Blessing
in a minute
people
here.
with
Not
the
with
hot
this group,
sauce.
but all of a sudden things are going to get a little
Here
sour
goes
right
people
across the
getting
street.
killed.
Let's watch what happens.
Catching the temperature, asphalt temperature challenge or something. Taking the. Good job, guys. You ignited fireworks. Who was shooting it? Who was shooting it? Hmm? What are they doing? It's a gunfight. Just shooting with cops around. It's crazy. Whoever he wanted dead, that was worth for him. Hmm? Something about brother, mother, and all that.
847, we need another medic. Shots fired, 33 recovered. We need cars, please.
Copy, 47 North High, shots fired.
No groaning? Immediate
The
death?
last update that I have on this is one of two shootings that they had that night, is that a grand total of 10 people were shot in those two shootings. All 10 are expected to survive. Of course, there were a host of charges here. I don't think the girl that got OC sprayed, I don't think she faced any charge, or at least it didn't make the news story that she did. It wasn't newsworthy. No officers were harmed in this, and that dude who they ended up putting in cuffs, they got him the help that he needed. And again, he's expected to survive and probably face a bunch of charges. All right, hands up. Who got the dated pop culture reference?
Wild West.
Business sucks. Mike, I make no bones about the fact that going to the bar at 2:30 in the morning is violating
Nah, you
all
motherfuckers
of
live in the Wild
stupid,
West, bro.
and I
This
don't
is
do it
nothing
personally. And I know some people who really like the nightlife. They
to
like the
trivialize or
boogie
normalize,
and all that
man.
stuff. And
You
okay,
guys
fine,
live in
whatever. But you got to recognize you're
kind of
violating a lot of rules
dystopian
of stupid when you
weirdness.
do that.
Yeah, and that's the first disco reference that I've heard you make on the channel, but I don't know if it's the first one of all time. First one of our badge cams, so I'm
I'm not
impressed.
saying you don't
Listen,
have like
a lot of things are
normal,
going on here. The
nonchalant
cops have a
people,
lot
like,
to deal with. They're dealing with drunk
in your
people, and drunk
country,
people
you
are
know what I mean?
irrational and they
Trying
talk too much.
like
and
halfway friendly
they can't be
types.
reasoned with, and they
My
like to
thing
fight,
is, like,
and they get their
paired with
feelings
that
hurt
is
very
like
easily.
that-
And
that
the problem
need
is you don't want to arrest every drunk who's
shoot
doing
and
the
kill.
slightest thing wrong because,
Something
as you
like
said,
that.
John, there was already a
You
shooting on
cowboys,
in
bro.
this area that
You're
night.
just descendants
Which
of
means if they arrest everyone who's doing the
people that are
slightest little
willing
thing,
to,
they
like,
have much
I'm not
far
saying
fewer
it's- I
officers
don't
to be
know,
out there
man.
on
It's
the
just-
street.
it's
So
closer to
we're gonna
you,
let
you
little
know,
infractions go,
that-
maybe with
that
a warning.
lawlessness
but this
type
sort
of
of thing, it's the worst duty of all time. This is the stuff for like 23,
killing to
24-year-old
get yours.
cops with a
you know what I mean?
45-year-old supervisor because it sucks and it's only something a young cop would want to do.
And I think they did a pretty good job of trying to calm this woman
Conquering,
down.
I
Like, you know,
guess.
she's
I don't know.
freaking
Something
out
like
and all that stuff. Hey, listen, as the private citizens here, maybe you got into a kerfuffle, remember.
Now you seem
De-escalation, escape,
unconquered,
and
though.
evasion, really good thing.
It's
Now,
like free
I know
fall.
some folks are going to wonder about the officer blessing this woman with some hot sauce here, okay? So he hits her with the OC. I actually love it. I think that in this case,
Of course you do.
this
You
woman
get an
here,
erection.
highly
You're white.
agitated, angry, trying to get away from everybody.
I
talking
don't
about
love
how she's gonna get
anything
after
like
these
that,
other
you know?
people, and,
Love?
you know, she wants to fight. And so if I just hit her with the hot sauce,
She
here,
wants to fight.
imminent
Like that,
when I'm like,
that
yeah,
police
she's gonna start fighting
vernacular
here in the
just
next
because
minute or
you
so,
get
then
called
I
as a
can take
witness
the starch right out of her jammies.
somehow.
In 5
It
minutes or so,
took
we can
18
decon
months
her,
of
and
jiu-jitsu
it's like an
training, I
adult
guess.
spanking.
That
I'm not
qualifies
kidding,
you?
man. It hurts like heck, but it doesn't injure. So I guess it's not like a spanking because it doesn't
This
injure any of
motherfucker,
that
bro.
stuff. So
You know?
just, it'll
She's
change
fighting.
her whole attitude, and then you don't even have to arrest her. I
Resisting,
think this was probably
not
a really
complying.
good thing to do to kind of calm everything down.
A few weeks ago, it was we're butt checking people, and now we're doing adult spankings. John, I don't like the direction this channel's going in. So here's the deal. This is why OC spray is such
Here's
a
the deal. Like,
fantastic less lethal
Can
tool.
you have
It can
some
be used on
other
someone who is just
preamble,
about to assault someone.
or
Now,
is
look,
that like
you can't use it
does that
because
come
you
with the
think
police
thing or
training,
whatever.
or when
She's
you
already been
saying
uncooperative.
here's the deal every
You've got
other
all these
fucking
people around in
sentence,
every direction. You don't have time
like before you ever
to
were
mess
cut
with her
that
all
or
night
whatever.
long. You got to get her contained and isolated and
Cut that.
stopped.
That
so you can
sounds
get
too
her in
official.
custody and get her out
Since
of
you
there.
were
And hopefully she can stop
a
egging
weirdo in
everyone
the
else on
academy.
to continue the fight, and it ends up being an entire melee. I think the OC spray was absolutely the correct thing to do, and it works fantastically. You just saw, as you said, took the starch right out of her jammies. Well done all the way around. Great tactic.
And it cleared the whole area too, right? Like, hey, that he was using like a fogger there, and
No,
that little fog just
shut
set
the
up
fuck
a
up. It
no-go
cleared the
zone
whole
for
area.
everyone.
Like
And
they're not
oh boy,
supposed
just
to
for a
be
little
there or
minute, it's
something. You know
outdoors,
what I
right?
mean?
You know, the wind will blow it away.
Like there were
relatively
people
quickly.
that weren't
But it
fighting.
got
So
everybody to get the heck out of there,
shut the
and
fuck
that
up.
is an effective means there. Now,
Nah,
shots ring out.
for what? For what?
Holy
You're
crap.
not slave
And I
patrol.
wanna note a couple
You're not
things.
supposed to just like
Number one, officer has to go from, hey, I'm just kind of cooling everything
assault
down.
the general
Now lives are
area.
at stake and shots are ringing
Fuck
out.
off,
I gotta
man.
change
These are still
mindset
people,
to
bro.
deal with that. Number
I
two,
understand they're black,
just wanna say
but
for
they're
these
still
officers,
breathing.
as a private
You know what I
citizen,
mean?
everybody should
they
be
qualify,
ducking and getting out of the
I'd
way.
say.
We should be running away from the sound of this
You know,
gunfire.
they're
Unless
screaming
you've
and
got a loved
everything
one
that
that's
might,
right over
in your white
this
mind,
officer, his
disqualify him
response
from
is to turn and run towards
being
the
human
gunfire,
beings.
get
But
out and engage.
after all, yeah, they
That
are.
to me,
They are still human
that
beings.
by
Alright.
itself
They're just
is
different.
admirable. I don't know if it's quite by itself.
More in touch
giving
with
you
their
access to the special pants brigade, but
emotions,
dang,
I'd
it's
say.
close,
You know
man.
what I mean?
I
Not
gotta
as
tell you,
cold-blooded.
This ability to shift gears is so critical in law enforcement in this
That's
job.
what makes
may
you
have to go
special. That's what you look up
from
down
clearing
upon.
a terrible accident
You
where
know, as
kids
a
were
white person.
killed
But
and you saw
reality
awful
is,
things,
you shouldn't
and
be
you go
so
10-8 because it's not your case, somebody else is handling it.
uppity with
And
it.
the
You
next
know
thing
what I
you
mean?
have
Just
is a neighbor
because you
dispute,
can be
you know,
cold-blooded or
the dogs
drown a
are barking
baby
or
or
whatever,
whatever. You
or
know what I
he
mean?
put
Like,
his fence, and his fence is 3 meters,
doesn't
or
mean,
3 millimeters onto my property. And that ability to shift and be professional and do your job.
I mean,
in all sorts of
it's
ways, not
obviously
just
it
this,
is
very
it is a
important.
plus.
If
If it's really a race war, or
nobody
whatever,
cares if you're fighting with your
the
wife,
fact that
nobody
you are
cares
able
about the
to
last
kill
call you're on, you're present in the
children
moment. This guy was
willy-nilly
extremely present in this moment, as you said.
gives
He
you an
went from
advantage. I'd say. I don't know
a bunch
how,
of drunks that
but
you're
it
gonna deal
definitely
with,
demoralizes
kind of a
the enemy.
a
I'd
little
say.
tense because you never know what's going to happen. To crap, there's a gunfight. And let me tell you, if you haven't heard gunshots in the wild when you're not expecting them, they're louder than you think, and they're terrifying. It's a terrifying sound to hear, especially in rapid succession. Gunshots going off. You're not at a range. You're like, what the heck's happening? Well, it's happening. Figure out that it's happening, as Stephanie likes to say, rapidly and radically accept reality and then deal with it. And that's exactly what they did.
And I love them for that, okay? And listen, I think this is one of the things that a police officer needs to do. Run towards the sound of gunfire. Cops, officers, hear me. If you can't, it's time for a new job.
Uvalde.
Simple as that. And not everybody can. And that's not to say you're not a good person. Now, recognize, shots are ringing out. A couple things here.
This
You gotta figure
he's
out real
uppity,
fast
isn't he?
who's
Yeah?
good
Like,
people
you
and who's
can't
bad
run
people.
towards gun. Like, can you?
Secondarily, do
I
wanna
don't know
note
that you
very
can,
common
but
that
you have
this
that
officer
weird
does.
tone in
He's
your
ripping
voice,
out
like
shots there at
you
quarter
their
second
sergeant,
splits
you
at
their
targets that are
supervisor
all the way
somehow.
across the diagonal
Like,
of the
bro,
intersection and over back
humility.
over
How
by the
about
truck
that?
here.
Like all
We're
these
talking
like
about
Christian
20,
values, but
30 yards, and he's running quarter second splits.
how about not? Don't make jokes
Unless you
about
are
it.
a
Then
USPSA
you know what I mean.
grandmaster,
Regardless what you
are not
think,
going to get his at that level. I'm going to tell you, I train with my
they
people
really
a
do think
lot,
there's no
and I can't
salvation,
get
man.
hits at that speed, at that distance. Okay, not reliably at the very least. If you're
They
Rob
want to be
Latham,
the
yes.
judge on
But for
earth
normal
and in the
humans,
afterlife.
very difficult.
You know what I
So
mean?
officers,
Morally
hear me.
superior,
You've got to be committed, especially at longer
judging,
distances.
killing you
Shoot
at the same
speed of
time.
your competence,
Then would the
not
judge you
the
laugh
speed you
about
feel
your
like you
death?
wanna
You
put
know what I mean?
rounds
All
down.
that we're calling
That takes real
themselves like
emotional control. It's difficult to
moral,
do, but you
sound,
can do it.
prudent.
Yeah, 100%. Here's what I would add to that, John. I think if you are an officer and you are out in the street and all of a sudden you have a gunfight going next to you, it's very likely the first time that has happened to you. And so those first few shots that were a little too rapid are probably perfectly natural if you haven't trained.
I'm
for
just
that
talking
sort of
over
thing.
these motherfuckers.
So I think knowing your incompetence
You know,
level,
that's
your
kind of my
confidence in your
style. I don't
equipment
know.
is extremely important.
I'm
Look,
also
if you
playing
know
at the same
a
time.
30
I don't
yard
have
shot with
the
your 9
time
mil
to
is
do
not
a
really
video.
doable, then you know not to shoot at that
Pause,
distance.
talk,
If
pause,
you know
talk,
that your
stop,
split
this,
time
that.
to be accurate
Fuck
at a
outta
certain
here, bro.
distance is what it is.
I'm talking over
You,
these fat
you should be
bastards,
able
man.
to control your shots to the point where
They're
you
fat
get
on
an
the
effective
inside, even
shot.
if the other
Not only
motherfucker has
because
lost
there's
weight.
potentially innocent bystanders in the background,
You
but
don't lose
because
that.
say it with me, misses don't win
it's
gunfights.
another
So we
thing.
want to get as many shots where we want them as quickly as we can.
Yeah,
And
I'm whooping your ass,
shooting
bro.
that quick is
Philadelphia, you get
what
your
a
ass
normal
whooped.
person would do under the circumstances. But hey, you're getting this mental rep. This is something to consider before it actually happens out in the field.
Yeah, and listen, getting that consideration beforehand, incredibly important. I really do want to commend this officer for his decision making. He's telling people drop the gun. You can see the guy in the green shirt sitting, right, kind of at the bottom
Military
of that car, right,
comments,
at its wheels, with his hands in the air.
Michael
Another guy
Jordan
right
in
next to him,
the
hard
playoffs.
for us to see until he gets closer with his hands in the air. And he is having to make discriminations in really brief time, in less than ideal lighting conditions, about who's a threat here and who do I need to stop. There are still shots breaking by the bad guy here, okay? So I just want to commend him for good decision making about who needs to be shot and who doesn't need to be shot, and in a incredibly chaotic situation.
100%. Again, I'm going to stop saying 100%. I say it too much. I know. Don't leave a comment. I think an important thing to understand here for
Anyway.
the citizen who's never done a ride along, never been in law enforcement, I think people assume the police magically know everything about a situation as soon as they arrive, right? If you ever call the police for, fill in the blank, whatever it is, and they show up and they don't do what you expect them to do immediately, you're frustrated because you're like, well, there's the thing. Go handle the thing. They may not know what the thing is. And in a situation like this, it is as chaotic as it can possibly be. You've got drunks. You've got people arguing on the street. You've got shots being fired. You've got a whole bunch of people, any of whom could be perfectly innocent, any of whom could be your bad guy that's potentially going to shoot you next. And you've got to sort through it, and that's really difficult to do. And frequently, mistakes are made. In this case, no mistakes were made. I think this officer did a fantastic job. Again, I mean, if we're lucky, this is a 480p, right, rendering of this video. It's grainy. Everything looks further away than it does in real life, so he's a lot closer to this than it looks like in the video. We have to take all that stuff into consideration and not make hate. We have to judge, right? We have to keep our police officers accountable, but don't make a hasty judgment based on the first thing that you see. What you couldn't really make out here was the guy was reaching for a gun, so he needed to be shot. Whether or not he was facing the officer or facing away, whether he was kneeling, laying down, hanging from a tree, swinging from, like
hanging from a tree.
He needed to be shot right then and there, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and again, this guy does end up being a threat. Now, officer here sees it, sends several more rounds, sends them at a very high rate. I will say, it looks to me here as we move forward that he's got a really good reload. Magazine comes out, new magazine goes in, he gets back to work. Officers, you absolutely need to carry at least 3 spares. This is how people justifiably get shot in the back. And it is 100% not about where you shoot somebody. It is 100% about why you shoot somebody. So when we articulate, why did you shoot that guy in the back? Because he was facing away from me, but he was using the gun after I'd hollered at him to drop the gun several times to threaten the guy that was in red. And he had already shot at that guy in red several times, and I had to shoot him to stop that. And so, is that a reasonable thing? Yes, you can defend a third party, and absolutely a police officer, we expect them to defend a third party from a deadly threat. So simply, is it justifiable to shoot somebody in the back? Maybe, right? Not all the time you shoot somebody in the back. It's about why, and I think this officer did the right thing.
Hey, you can tell these cops have just the right level of aggression. They're just aggressive enough. I don't want passive cops, right? I want cops who have restraint and aggression at the same time. If you look back a few frames, you'll see another young officer just Carl Lewising it down the block at someone who I assume someone who's fleeing. And that kid's taking off like a jackrabbit because he wants to get the bad guy, and that's how I want my cops to think. I want to get the bad guy. But that restraint is also called for, so we don't want them shooting randomly at random people. These cops showed a ton of aggression and restraint at the same time. They got in there and solved the problem. And as far as, I think I talked already about shooting in the back, it's never about where you shoot someone. It is the target that presents itself and the reason that we're shooting that count, and that's it.